You're listening to the Creative Boom podcast. Welcome back. I'm your host, Katie Cowan. I hope you've all been very well. It's lovely to be back. If you're tuning in for the first time, Creative Boom is a leading online magazine for creative professionals, and this is our podcast. The very aim of Creative Boom is to celebrate, inspire, and support the creative community. So in that spirit, we bring you candid conversations with artists and designers from all over the world, sharing their creative journeys so far. That means the highs, the lows, the funny bits, the sad moments, the lessons learned, and the wisdom to give you lots of insight and inspiration. So without further ado, we kick off season 5 with a topic that is thankfully getting louder in the creative industries, and that's mental health. To guide us through, we've invited Manchester-based graphic designer Graham Jones as our first guest. Now, if you're one of those creatives who doesn't really do your own marketing or seek fame in this industry, then Graham will be right up your street. He's stayed deliberately quiet, not seeking out interviews or press coverage. Instead, he's been focusing on navigating his way through a successful career spanning over 2 decades. And he's had the publicity without even trying, as his work speaks for itself. He's been published in dozens of respected books by the likes of Victionary and Counter-Print, and has been celebrated in magazines such as Computer Arts and Grafik. Graham runs the independent design studio Loose Collective, and is also a part-time senior lecturer at the Manchester School of Art. If there's one thing he's especially famous for here in the Northwest, though, it's for being one of the nicest people in the industry. He knows everyone and is well loved. He's a positive force for good in the design community here, and someone who, we discover, has fought many battles to overcome his own mental struggles. In this episode, we chat about the obsession of fame and fortune in the design industry, why it's bad for mental health, and why being famous shouldn't be the goal. Graham also gives us a reality check about the field overall. It's not glamorous for the most part. It can be hard work, a real slog. You have to really love the profession to do it. We also talk about overcoming imposter syndrome and the little mind tricks we can play to be happier creatives. And Graham gives us loads more reassuring advice to navigate what can sometimes feel like a difficult career. Hi, thanks for coming along.
No problem. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah, lovely, beautiful, sunny day in Manchester for a change.
Yes. Yeah, unusual, but very nice.
Yeah, having a nice brew and...
very well-made brew.
Very, very well-made brew. It's Yorkshire tea, like tea used to be.
Lovely. Good stuff.
Other tea brands are available. Now, Graham, forgive me. I'm about to insult you probably.
That's okay.
But that's not my intention. It's kind of sort of going to form the basis of what we'll be talking about today. You are a graphic designer by trade.
Correct.
But nobody's really heard of you.
Correct.
And that's a deliberate thing.
Correct. Yes. Do you want me to elaborate?
Yes, why?
I mean, I think when I was a younger designer, I was probably more into that thing of getting published in books and kind of getting your work featured on design blogs and all that kind of stuff. And I think just because I've been doing it over 22 years now, I've just kind of realised over the years that none of that really makes any difference and it doesn't really matter. So when I was a younger designer, I was the same as everyone. It's like, oh God, if I get published in a book, that'll be amazing and all that kind of stuff. And then when it happens, it's kind of like a real anticlimax. It's kind of, you get published in a book and you think, oh, nice one, like the phone's going to start ringing now. And the phone never rings.
Yeah.
So I went through a phase of doing stuff like that where I did get featured quite a bit. And then just more deliberately, I've kind of sort of avoided that kind of stuff just because it can, I don't know, it can affect your mental health to a certain extent, but I think it can also change the way that you look at your job as a designer. And I think sometimes it's a bad path to go down in my head if you're just being a designer so you become well known as a designer. I think the most important thing is the work and the communication of the work for your client and for your audience and stuff like that. So I see a lot of young designers, especially with me being a lecturer at Manchester School of Art as well. I see a lot of young designers who are kind of like, oh, how do I get in books? How do I get featured? How do I get like well known? And it's like, my question is always why do you want that? So I think as I've got older and maybe not wiser. I'm not really interested in that anymore, and it's not really part of why I do what I do. I'd rather slip under the radar a bit and just do work that I enjoy doing, and working with those kinds of people that I want to work with, who are interested, and that for me is enough. And it's the same with finance, really. I'm not a graphic designer to get rich, and I think if anyone gets into graphic design to get rich, then they probably need to have a rethink, because it's not like this super glamorous kind of traveling around the world sort of getting paid lots and lots of money and that kind of thing. It's like it's a proper slog, especially when you work for yourself, as a lot of people who do the same probably know. So my incentives for doing work is mainly to do good work, and to work with interesting people. The rest of it is a load of bollocks, really. It doesn't really make any difference.
To put it bluntly, yeah. And I've been running this thing for 13 years, and I've kind of seen it from the outside. I'm not a graphic designer at all. I'm a journalist who's had a sort of brief flirtation with PR and marketing. So graphic design has always sort of been there in my life. But I'm not a graphic designer, and sometimes I get those kind of overwhelming sometimes I feel like I'm a graphic designer who's like, oh, I should publish a book, or I should be seen here. And it kind of just overwhelms you. And you said just then that you ask your students, why do you want that? And that's a really good question. Do you think it's because we're bombarded with these sort of big names at big talks? And
yeah, I think so. I think that's part of it. There's probably loads of other reasons as well. But it's really weird, actually, because a graphic designer is never going to become famous outside of graphic design. So it's kind of not really being famous. It's sort of being a celebrity designer or being a famous designer within the arena of graphic design, which nobody who's not a graphic designer is really interested in. So the whole idea of a designer being a celebrity designer just doesn't make any sense anyway.
No.
And it's not to use the old sort of cliche of never meet your idols, but the sort of famous graphic designers, so to speak, that I have met over the years have been really disappointing. You kind of expect them to be like these amazing characters, and and they weren't. So it was like, so it was kind of like a bit of an eye opener, really. That I think there's a lot of pressure, and I think there's a lot of pressure on students. When we get like big names in to speak at university and show the work and do workshops, we do all that kind of thing because we know that it's an attractive prospect for a potential student if you've got these kind of renowned, well-respected designers coming in to sort of work with them. But there's a lot of pressure to sort of conform to that kind of thing, and I think there's a lot of pressure on students to do that, but also on designers as well. You're kind of bombarded with, you go on Instagram and you see other designers who have got like 3 million followers, and you sort of think like, right, I've only got like 2,000 or something like that, and you think like, so how have they got that? And it's that kind of thing. It's almost sort of makes you feel like you have to conform to that, but you've got to kind of resist it. I've learned that you've got to kind of just plot your own path and not worry so much about whether your work is being lauded in the design press or any of that kind of stuff. It's not really important. I think what I always say to our students is like, if you want to be a graphic designer, you've got to love it. It's got to be life and soul, and you don't ever switch off as a designer because you're constantly thinking about what you're doing next, thinking if you've got a job on, how you're going to approach it. So it's a 24/7 thing, and that can be quite a lot for some people.
Yeah. I think it's going back to that point, isn't it? If we're measuring success in graphic design on how famous we are or how many followers we have, that's always going to end up in a kind of, unhealthy place. But whereas if you're measuring it in terms of, am I doing something I love?
Yeah, exactly.
And are the people that I'm creating the work for happy with my work? Essentially, those are the only two things that matter.
Yeah. The main thing is, are you doing work that kind of speaks to people, speaks to the audience that you're aiming at? Is it work that resonates with the client that you're working with? All those things are kind of the key crucial things. And if that then means you get more work from doing that, then that's what you're doing. That's ideal. It's, if you do a particular kind of work, or you work in a particular arena, and that's the arena you love working in, and if it means you get more work, then that's exactly what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
All the other stuff around the exterior, all that kind of stuff's not really important at all. But I do get the pressure from, all that kind of thing that young designers are probably under, thinking that they have to achieve that or get to that kind of level of notoriety. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, we talk about how you discuss these things with your students. I've had discussions like this with particularly male graphic designers who are sort of 30 years into their careers, obviously not mentioning any names, but it's a very common affliction. And, some of these people are famous, and they struggle. And it just seems to be this kind of, recurring theme. And I think the older you get as a designer, the other worry is that you've got all this generation of kids coming up behind you who are doing great work, and you're worried that you're getting old and you're becoming irrelevant. Or people might be so sick of hearing your name that suddenly you're kind of, do I count anymore? Am I relevant? Should I even say anything?
Well, you kind of think that every morning when you get up. It's kind of like, are people still going to employ me to do things? And I think, you have those doubts. It's a constant thing that it's kind of, with being someone who teaches degree students graphic design, you see how amazing they are. And I sort of think back to when I was a student at university, and I think, God, I was shite compared to these. They do so much stuff. They're so multidisciplined. Whereas when I was learning graphic design at uni, it was like, you were a print designer, or you were kind of a designer that was working in digital, but digital was very, very tiny at that point. It was, websites had only just sort of become a thing. So I learnt my trade as someone who designs physical things, which is kind of what I love. But you see students come in today and they know how to use everything. And it's kind of like they know how to use it better than we do. And, I've been using Creative Suite for 22 years or whatever it is, but you still get people who come in and you're asking them how to do something. Yeah. But I think that's totally cool. And so, you do have that kind of, you are thinking, there's loads of amazing people coming through into the industry. But I've just found you find your own place as you develop through your career as a designer, and as you get more experience, you sort of slot into where you're supposed to be. And I think there's room for everyone, really. I don't think it's one of those things where there's loads of graphic designers and there's loads of people signing up to do it at universities, and that's a really popular kind of subject to do because it's so broad nowadays that you can go off into tons of different areas and tons of different fields. So there's a pressure sort of the new blood coming through and kind of taking over, and you don't get any work anymore. But I think if you stick to your guns and you do kind of what you're good at, and you sort of not necessarily specialize, but if you work in the kind of arena that you're comfortable working in, then there's room for everyone, really. I don't think anyone's going to come along and then suddenly you're going to be out of work. It's not the case. It's never been the case. It's not happened yet anyway. So, you do think about it, but
keep going.
I think the main thing with students as well is we want them to be amazing. We want them to kind of be really good, and we want them when they leave university, we want them to be ready for the design industry, so that studios and practitioners, when they're looking for new people to employ, we're producing students at our university that, could go into anywhere, really. They're as good as you get. So I think it's important that we encourage that, even if we are a bit bitter that they're better than we are. But, you just deal with it, don't you?
It's great. It must be wonderful, actually, to do, because you do lecture, but you also do your own sort of graphic design projects on the side as a freelancer, as the owner of your own studio. It must be wonderful having that contrast. And I suppose working with such a great, interesting crowd of, not necessarily always younger, but working with these students, is a good way of keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've said that before when I've done sort of little talks and things sort of in Manchester. Yeah, they keep you on your toes, definitely. And I like to think they keep me sort of fresh as a designer, because what's great about design students is because they're so naive, they haven't had 20 years in the industry. They don't know what works and what's, they haven't sort of developed that toolkit yet where they think, oh, I know what will work for this, and they go and do something. So they try anything, and loads of it doesn't work. But to see to sort of be in that position where you don't have those kind of shackles on of knowing when something's going to work and when it isn't going to work is like really freeing. So being a design student at the moment is such an amazing thing to do, because they're not afraid to try anything. Whereas there's established graphic designers who are working to a strict budget and a strict deadline. You've got to make sure you hit what you're supposed to hit.
Yeah.
So you don't have that freedom, so to speak, that you do as a design student. That's what I always tell them. It's a great time to be a design student at the moment, and to sort of don't waste it. You've got 3 years to kind of try things out, experiment, find your own visual voice. Things are going to go wrong and things are not going to work, and it's kind of, that's not important. It's what you do when it doesn't work. It's what you do next.
It's the process, isn't it?
Yeah. Because, when you go on like Instagram and people's websites, all you see there is like a highlight reel. It's not, it doesn't show you the hours that went into it, that when nothing was working. It just shows you the finished thing in all its glory. So, I even do it myself as a designer. You look at other designers' Instagram feeds and you think like, oh my God, they're really good. Like, why don't they have that sort of, that complete collapse of confidence that everyone gets when you get a new project to work on? But they do. It's just that nobody ever broadcasts it. It's literally, here's all my really cool stuff in the hope that it'll get you more really cool stuff to work on, which is how it kind of works. But I think students think that as experienced graphic designers that we're totally infallible.
Yeah.
And that we don't worry about things and we don't get self-conscious about what we're doing and we don't compare ourselves to everyone else when we all kind of do. You just kind of put it to one side and you've got to try and avoid thinking about that, because it can become really destructive if you think like that,
So you're saying you've been working with Adobe Creative Suite for what, 22 years? When did you graduate?
99.
Right, so we are the same age. I took a year out.
All right, okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, 99. As I did 96 to 99 at Manchester School of Art.
Amazing.
And it was the same course that we do now, but it was a different course then, because it covered advertising as well, and to a certain extent, it was called Design and Art Direction. So it was more of an open-ended kind of design course. It wasn't specifically a graphic design course.
Yeah.
And you kind of specialised as you went through the 3 years, and whereas the course now is very specifically graphic design, but graphic design is so massive now as a subject. It covers illustration, motion, digital. So all kinds of stuff is classed as in the design industry now that wasn't when, if you weren't laying type and image out, you weren't a designer. When I was a student. That's how it kind of was.
And back then, I suppose the two of us, if we had any sort of issues, any sort of mental health problems, didn't really deal with it back then. Is it different now? Are the students sort of more self-aware? Are they kind of able to talk about these things without fear of it backfiring on them?
I think one thing I've noticed is there's more of it happening. And I presume that's just the pressures of working sort of modern living, not having any money, not being able to do anything, all that kind of stuff. And I think students are better at expressing it now. When I was a student, nobody talked about anything.
No.
There were no kind of, as far as I'm aware anyway, there was no sort of student counselling service or anything like that. It just was unheard of. Where I think students nowadays, have got access to lots of really useful things. I just think they put themselves under a lot of pressure. And if they do have any mental health problems, they think it's a problem with them, that they're doing something wrong or that they're not cut out for doing what they want to do. And it's not the case. I think, the more people I've met over the years, the more people I've met, especially in the creative industries, who have mental health issues. It's like super, super common, especially among men. It's just that we've never been any good at sort of expressing it or talking about it.
Never been allowed to cry.
No, well, I mean, yeah. I have cried at certain films, usually action films and things like that. But yeah, it's changing, and I think it's changing for the better. And since I never spoke about anything until 2017 when I did a Petra Kuchar, and it was one of those things where there was no subject we had to, or theme that we had to pick. So what you usually do is you just talk about your work and for 10, 15 minutes, and that was that. But I thought, well, I don't want to do that because who wants to listen to a talk about me talking about myself? It was kind of like, that's like really boring. Like,
very humble of you.
But what, who wants to listen to that? It's
well, I would have.
No. So I thought, well, can I talk about so for me, it was an outlet for me to sort of say, I've had mental health problems since my 20s, on and off, and still do, right up to the present. And it was a good way for me to get it off my chest, because I'd never really spoken to anyone about it in the industry. And because it was full of people in the industry, I was kind of hoping that maybe they could relate to it.
And it might spark some conversations.
Yeah, that was the aim, hopefully. And so I didn't know whether it was going to completely bomb or whether people were really going to like it. But yeah, it was almost like therapy in a way, just to sort of talk about that stuff. And then, talking about things like imposter syndrome and all that kind of stuff. And, whereas I think like nowadays, like 5 years down the line, that's a really common sort of subject that people talk about. People know what it is when they say, oh, I've got imposter syndrome, or I suffer from imposter syndrome, and that kind of thing. People are more aware of what it is. Whereas sort of a few years ago, it wasn't as common. So, but it went down really well, and loads of people came up to me afterwards and just said, thank you for doing that. And I was like, well, you don't have to thank me. Could you relate to it? And they said, like, yeah. They said, I've got everything you've got. I've just never been diagnosed with it.
Right.
So it was a good way to sort of say, it's totally okay to be totally mentally fucked up. It's it probably it does make you. I remember my doctor saying to me about my like really bad OCD and all kinds of things that I sort of have on and off, and he said like it makes you really great at your job.
Yeah, exactly.
But it makes it really difficult for you as a person,
right?
Not just socially, but it can affect kind of your day-to-day life. So he said it's getting the right balance of using those things in a positive way in your work, but then going easy on yourself when you're not working, and not to put yourself under the microscope like that.
Yeah.
So that was something that really stuck with me. So I think as creative people, we're really hard on ourselves, and we're never good enough. In our own heads. And I think you've got to give yourself credit when you do something well, because what we all tend to do is kind of ignore something that goes really well and say, oh, it was a fluke, I didn't really mean to do that, it just happened. And then focus on something when it doesn't work and really sort of dig it apart. And that can be quite self-destructive,
It's sadly the human condition.
Yeah.
I think the best advice I ever got was from my dad, when I said to him, Dad, when do you figure it all out? When do you realize you've reached this point where you're okay and you've figured it all out? And he just laughed and said to me, I don't know, I'll tell you when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Never. Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of who we are. It's what we all have to go through. And when it comes to having a career in such a kind of industry where everything's on the line, where everything's there for everyone to see, can be really soul destroying, the pressure you must feel. But in everyone I've chatted to, imposter syndrome seems to just be something we all occasionally suffer from, some more than others. But I think on talking to a lot of people, it seems that a good way to tackle these things is to remind yourself of all the good work that you've done. And lean into your strengths and acknowledge that actually that imposter syndrome, that fear, might be a really positive thing.
Yeah, it usually is. That's the thing.
It's encouraging you to learn and grow and keep pushing on.
If I didn't have that whenever I started a new job, I'd be more worried then that I didn't care anymore, or that I wasn't doing as good a job as I could do. I think having those sort of insecurities when you start a new project or whatever it is that you're doing, I think keeps you really focused, and keeps you in that mind frame where you do the best job that you possibly can within the time frame that you've got. I think if I went into it kind of going, oh, well, this is a piece of piss, I'm just going to knock this out, and that I probably wouldn't be a decent designer. So I think
comes with the territory.
Yeah, but I think you're right, though. A lot of those things that people see as a negative trait, if you push them in the right areas and you use them in the right way, they can be really valuable things. I know a lot of designers who are OCD, and I don't mean like OCD and that kind of thing of, everything's got to be neat and all that kind of thing, but negative thinking and negative thinking patterns and getting in those horrible cycles that are really difficult to break, where you find yourself in a very sort of dark place and it's really difficult to come out of that. And like you say, it's really important to write down when you do something successfully, because we tend to ignore that and we just focus on what went wrong. Whereas if you have a list of things, I remember when I was really ill, like in my 20s, and I had a list of things to achieve for the day.
Right.
And the first week that I started doing that, because I was doing CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, the only achievement I had on it was stay alive. That was it. It was literally to get through a day and still be there at the end was something I could tick off. And then as I started getting better, I started ticking more things off. So you've got to congratulate yourself when you do something, however minute it is. If you do the hoovering and it looks fantastic, allow yourself to congratulate yourself that you did something really well. Because we just tend to focus on what didn't go so well. We don't really congratulate ourselves. I think we're very bad at actually saying to ourselves, you did a really good job.
Yeah.
I think that's really, we're conditioned. I don't know what it is. We're just not good at doing that. Some people are. But yeah, the kind of people who think they're amazing tend to not be that great graphic design wise. They just talk a good design.
A good talk, yeah. Yeah. Oh, and obviously male suicide is something that has become more prevalent, particularly during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's shocking to see the statistics that have gone up. I mean, if anybody's listening to this and this is, hitting a nerve, resonating, then, obviously it goes without saying. And it's a very difficult step to take. But go and find help.
It's massive.
Go and talk to someone.
Yeah.
Find a counsellor.
I think the first step is just realising that you do need help. I think once in your own head, you think, I can't do this. I need some kind of help, whether it's doing therapy or whether it's, a combination of medication and therapy, whatever it is. I think the first step is kind of saying to yourself, I do actually need help. I think once you sort of accept that in your head, it feels like a massive weight has been lifted. And then I think once you start getting help, you start to realise that, oh, hang on a minute, there's tons of people like this. When I did CBT the first time, there's a whole document that someone had written about breaking negative thinking patterns, and just seeing that document existed made me think, oh, right, so it's not just me.
Yeah.
It's not just in my head this. Someone's written this. So there must be loads of other people who have the same thing. And I think once you start to realise that, you take that pressure off yourself, and it becomes more about figuring out the best way to manage those things on a day-to-day basis, and kind of, kind of do stuff that you love and enjoy, and kind of get to that point where you don't put yourself under the microscope so much. But it's really difficult because we always do.
We all do. Yeah, we're human. And I think, but CBT is a brilliant one. If anybody's listening to this and has never sort of delved into that kind of area, it's a brilliant tool to help you kind of manage those sort of, negative voices in the head. And it can be something as simple as you're walking down the street and you see somebody from the creative industry that you've not seen since the beginning of the pandemic, and they walk past you and they blank you, even though you said hello. And then for the rest of that afternoon, you've got a choice. You can either allow your brain to spiral and go to a dark place and come up with all sorts of kind of scenarios. Oh no, did I not?
Yeah.
Should I have reached out sooner? Did I say something wrong?
Yeah.
Did I not like something on their Instagram? Do they hate me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm awful, and so on and so forth.
There was exactly the things that I was doing, Like I would text a friend, and if they didn't get back to me within 2 hours, I would immediately think my go-to thought was, what have I done? Or, they don't want to hang out with me. They don't like me. So CBT taught me to sort of write those things down, but then write the other 30 things down that might be the reason they've not got back to you. Like the phone battery's out, or they're driving so they can't answer the phone. Or the phone's on silent and they've left it upstairs and they're downstairs watching something on telly.
Something really engrossing.
Yeah. So, and what you find is when you do that, it seems really strange at first because you think this is really silly. But it's not, because it's a way to retrain your brain to actually not focus on the, what did I do wrong? Why haven't they got back to me? Oh, they must hate me. And you actually start to realise when you do find out why they didn't get back to you, it's usually one of the reasons on the more positive side that you didn't really consider. So, and once you see that works, and once you realise that, you can help sort of change the way that you interpret events.
Yeah.
Which is the main thing. It's interpreting things that happen in a negative light, and it can destroy you. It can destroy your confidence and destroy you as a person. And so, for me, that was a massive thing. Doing CBT was pretty much saved my life, really. Just to sort of realise that, anxiety works as a system to it. And this is how you break those cycles. And for me, that was like eureka moment,
Which is, all very normal, by the way. And I think we all go through it in many different ways. I kind of tell myself on a regular basis, Katie, you're not the center of the universe. And that's a little bit harsh, but it's a really good reminder that the world does not revolve around me. And then I sort of say to myself, and also the world doesn't revolve around anyone else. So if that person over there doesn't like you, and you genuinely think they don't like you, then don't take it personally, because you have no idea what's going on in their life.
No, exactly.
Or what they're going through. And equally, they have no idea what's going on in your life. So if you've blanked someone by accident and they now dislike you because you didn't speak to them in the street, it doesn't matter. They don't know that you've just heard the worst news. They don't know that you're going through a lot that day. Forgive yourself, forgive others, and try and move on, because these things, we can dwell on them, or we can very positively just say to ourselves, actually, the world does not revolve around me and everything's going to be okay.
I think what you find as well is that pretty much every day of the week, most people are going through something. Yeah. It's not like everyone has these perfect lives. No. There's always something, however trivial it feels, someone will be dealing with something.
Yes.
So people, you're allowed to have flaws. You're allowed to kind of make mistakes. You can't be this kind of perfect person kind of every day of the week. It's an impossible task, and it's an impossible pressure to kind of be like that. But we put ourselves under it. We expect us to be able to do something like that or achieve that kind of level, and it's okay to not be perfect. Yeah,
exactly. I think there's a pecking order as well, or a so-called pecking order in the creative industries.
Oh yeah.
That when you talk to particularly like some of the studio owners down in London, they one chap said to me last summer, we all know each other. We all know about each other, and you get the impression it's a pressure. It's an additional layer of crap to deal with. Yeah. Where do we line up in the kind of like in the top 40 charts of design agencies?
But that's the thing. It's like, why do we even have top 40 charts for design agencies?
I know.
What's it for? Do you see what I mean?
It's all a little bit absurd, if you ask me, because at the end of the day, if you're running a studio and you've got staff and you're producing some great projects, I mean, that is incredible. That's amazing what you must have been through to get there.
And if you're getting more great projects because of the previous great project, then
that's all that matters.
You're winning.
You're winning. It doesn't matter if you're not kind of considered the best design agency in the world. But
when you see some of those lists, some of the criteria for sort of getting to the top of one of those lists is like totally different. It's not like It's not necessarily you're top of the list because you're the most creative studio. It's you're top of the list because you've brought the most money in that quarter. You know, so it's like it's kind of it's
most staff.
Yeah, it's what is the judging criteria for being classed as the best studio? Is it a studio that has really happy staff? Is it a studio that makes a decent profit? Is it a studio who does amazing work and they're not bothered about making a profit? I don't think, you know, those things are different for everyone.
I think it's a bit different in terms of running a studio than just being a designer on your own. Because then I suppose it becomes important, because if you're better known and you've got these bigger brands, then you attract more brands, and then it depends on the success of the agency. So there must be tons of pressure.
I think it depends on the kind of work you want as well. You know, I've walked into some studios and as you walk in through the reception, there's all these awards kind of on a shelf, like all nicely polished and stuff. And it's like, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, if that's important to that studio to have those awards, and if having those awards attracts the kind of clients that they want to work with, then fair play to them. You know, it's just not for me. You know, it's kind of, if a client came to me because I'd won an award, I probably wouldn't want to work with them if that was the only reason they came to me, rather than actually having some sort of connection with the way I do things, maybe, or the things that I do. That part's not important to me, but I get that it is important for, you know, bigger studios, different kinds of studios who do more commercial kind of work and that kind of thing. That's totally cool. It's just not for me. That's all.
Kind of playing the game, aren't they? And
but I get that.
Yeah, same. But I think in the context of our chat, I think if anyone's listening to this and finding it valuable, because we're talking about why it's okay not to have awards, why it's okay not to be famous, and put yourself out there, why the motivation is enough, and that you're doing good work, you're enjoying what you do for a living, and you've got happy clients. I mean, that is success.
I think it's that thing, you know, don't put that pressure on yourself. Like, if I don't win a design award in my entire career, I'm a failure. It's like, no, it's not the case at all. If people respect you and they respect the work that you do and people want to work with you, then, you know, for me, that's enough. You know, it's kind of, I've met a lot of people in the design industry over the last 20 years and there's lots of different people who have different opinions on that kind of thing. And that's, like I say, there's room for everyone. All those opinions are valid. It's just, rather than sort of playing the game, I'd rather go home and play PS4 or something like that, you know, or go to a gig, you know, rather than sort of go to an industry event and talk about fonts with loads of other people. It's kind of, you know, I don't really want to do that.
No.
I can think of more interesting things to do. I mean, there's a time and a place for talking about fonts and things like that, but...
Favourite font?
Oh, I mean, that's unanswerable. That's kind of, my favourite font is the best font for the job that you're doing currently.
Good answer.
So, no, I don't. I don't. It's like, what's your favourite film? It's just, it's...
Oh, impossible.
It's impossible to answer.
You've got a top 10 maybe, and it's always changing. Yeah,
it always changes, because I think when you look back at your design from like 10 plus years ago, it looks that way for lots of different reasons. It looks that way for the context of the work you were doing, but also external factors at the time, you know, popular culture at the time, you know, all that kind of stuff impacts on the way that you do stuff. So, you know, when you look back at old work and think, you know, shit, what was I thinking? It's like, at the time, it was the right thing to do. You've got to kind of let things sit and kind of what you would do nowadays that you would do differently. Yeah, you probably would do it all differently again.
Of course you would.
But you know, you've got to remember that there was different circumstances when you did that, and different external pressures and different factors that fed into your work and that kind of thing. And you've got to kind of live with it. And you know,
I've got this new thing where I'm like, okay, so I can look back at the way Creative Boom was maybe 13 years ago and be really embarrassed by it. But actually, no, I'm changing the whole kind of mindset. I'm like, now, do you know what? You, after a global recession, started this positive thing for the industry to support artists and designers. That is fantastic.
Yeah, that's massive.
And that's all you kind of like focus on, and you don't worry about all the rest. And you know, like yourself, when you're looking back at old projects, you don't focus on the fact that, you know, that work compared to the stuff you're doing now isn't as good, so-called. You say, wow, I was doing that back then, and look at all the things I've learned since. Yeah. And I love that thing where they say, if you're not embarrassed by your work 10 years ago, then you're not improving.
I think when you look back at stuff as well, I think what I always find is when I've just finished a project, like I usually hate it like immediately because I've finished it, it's done. It's like that massive pressure's off and it's like, oh God, why didn't I do that? You're always going to sort of do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then I always find like if I don't look at it for 6 months and I put it in a drawer or something, and then 6 months down the line when my head's in something else, I then look at it, I actually find that I really like it then.
Yeah.
It's almost like a period of time has to pass before you forget about all the things that you're not happy with because you're focused on a different project or a different set of projects. That when you actually pick it up and look at it, you go, oh, actually, it's all right, that. It's that kind of thing. And I think, we've all done work that we're not happy with, and we've all done work that you think, oh, God, why did I let that go out? Or, how did I even think about doing that? But they're part of what makes you the designer you are now. It's kind of all that stuff shapes you, and you can't kind of deny it. It's kind of, every project you do is not going to be a number one, record.
No.
It's not going to be that way. And you've got to...
Or if it is, it's not necessarily that it means
amazing.
It's good.
Yeah.
Because look at, some of the one-hit wonders of our youth.
Yeah.
Rick Astley, still going, still touring.
Still doing it.
I'm related to him,
Oh, yeah, cool.
I am, yeah. I found out about that quite a few years ago now, yeah. Sort of related to Rick Astley. Yeah. Didn't know about Rick rolling either until recently.
Oh, God, really?
Yeah, I know.
That's been going on for years.
I know. I've had my head down working and I don't really sort of go on, what is it called, TikTok?
Oh, God, no. No. I can do Instagram and a little bit of Twitter.
I'm not tempted by video. You're not going to start doing
that whole thing of like, camera. Hey, everyone, I'm brewing up this morning and then I'm going to sit down and do some design. I don't know. Why is anyone interested? It's kind of, showing you my process of literally sitting there sort of thinking, fuck, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
Kind
of got enough to worry about.
I don't want to see other people watching that. It's kind of, I don't know. It's different generation of stuff to my generation. I try and do what I know it's important, especially when you work for yourself to promote yourself and be good at that. But, I usually with the way I do things and the way that I think is, if someone wants to work with me, they will find me.
Yeah.
And when people do make the effort to find you, you tend to find that those jobs are the really rewarding ones where people have actually employed you because a way you do things or a way you think or a way you communicate through design. And I think that I'd rather sort of, I can't think who said it, but I always remember read this quote like last year maybe in a book, and I can't for the life of me remember who it was. There's a graphic designer somewhere in the world who said, I just want to design record covers for bands that no one's ever heard of.
Oh, yes.
And I can't for the life of me think who it is. And so that really resonated with me, that kind of thinking. And it's kind of like Saul Bass said decades ago, I want to make beautiful things, even if nobody cares. It's that kind of thing. Those things kind of those kinds of ways of thinking have shaped me as a designer. And I felt that was the kind of way of looking at things that resonated with me the most. So that's why I've kind of gone down that route of trying to fly under the radar a little bit, you know, without kind of, and I should be better at shouting about what I do, and but.
See, that's one of those voices though, isn't it? We should be better at this. We should be better at that. But the thing is, when you're running your own studio, your own business, there are so many things that you have to think of. I was getting a bit overwhelmed by things. I don't know why. It's just one of those things. We're all human. And I messaged a friend and they messaged back something they'd seen on LinkedIn. And it literally made my bottom lip wobble. Yeah. And I got really upset, but in a positive way. Because what this message on LinkedIn was saying was, when you run a business, you don't only do this. You also are the admin. You also do the accounts. You also, you have to look after staff or freelancers or whatever it is that you do. Yeah. You also have to clean the house, cook the dinner. Yep. You do everything. So when you freelance as a designer, it's all consuming, that we don't give ourselves enough credit.
Yeah, exactly.
That we're doing all of these things and we're keeping our heads above water. We're maintaining a social life. We're seeing our family still. We're keeping the house relatively in order. These are amazing things. Yeah. They might be mundane things, but the very fact that you're making a living out of your craft
they're part
as well.
Of what you do.
It's incredible.
A lot of students sort of don't see that necessarily until they actually sort of jump in at the deep end. When students are talking about what they want to do when they graduate, and some students really want to work in a studio sort of system. Some students want to do their own stuff, and I think what you find is when you do your own stuff, it kind of dawns on you quite quickly that the fun bit, the design bit, is like such a minuscule part of the overall job that you do. It's like 10% of your job, because you're the new business person, you're the junior designer, you're the middleweight, the senior, and the art director. You like you say, you've got to clean the studio up, you've got to answer the door. You've not got a receptionist or anyone who can, or an admin assistant or anything like that. You're the one writing the invoices and chasing money. And I think students always have that thing in their head about, work for myself is like the ideal kind of thing. But then when they realise the other 90% of stuff that you have to deal with that isn't fun, it can put people off. It's kind of not for everyone. Whereas, if you go in a studio and you're employed as a designer, all you do all day is design.
Yeah.
It's amazing. They have people, they have a department who chase money. They have a department who get the invoices out and budget jobs, and they have, a department who speaks to the clients, and they have a new department that gets new business in and stuff. And I think when you're in a studio and you're just a designer, you sort of overlook all that stuff and think that, well, when I work for myself, it's going to be like this, but I'll be on my own. And you think, you're going to have to do everything else that this studio does, but you're going to have to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite off-putting to a lot of people.
It certainly is. And I think anyone who kind of thinks that running a studio or being a freelancer, it's a wonderful, rewarding thing. But like you say, it's not for everyone, and it's not the pinnacle of your career. You can have a successful career working for other people, working in-house even. It's not the kind of thing to reach for. It's not for everyone.
No, I mean, some people do it really well. We've had some students graduate and they've immediately took to it, like working for themselves, doing everything, and they've really enjoyed it. And then other people have gone, no, I'm going to get me a job in a studio. Yeah. So it's different strokes for different folks, isn't it, and what have you. And you figure out where you belong. I think a lot of students also worry about, like, the first job I get has got to be the most amazing design job at the most amazing design studio. And it doesn't have to be. You might do 3 studio jobs at 3 different places before you work somewhere that you fit in with everyone and they've got the same attitude as you and you think the same way. Sometimes people get lucky and they find somewhere that they belong straight away. But a lot of the time, it's kind of trial and error and testing things out and seeing what's not right for you. And eventually, you sort of slot into where you're supposed to be, But it's not a quick fix. It does take time to kind of realise that and find out where you belong,
You mentioned vinyl covers. Is that what you mainly do then? You sort of work in the music industry?
Yeah, it seems to be recently. It wasn't a deliberate thing. It was. I don't know. I started getting more selective with kind of what I did, what jobs I took on, and it was just at the time vinyl was having like massive resurgence. I think it's like the most popular now that it's been since the 80s.
Really?
Yeah, and like it's really expensive though as well. I think like on average, like if you bought an LP on vinyl, on a special coloured vinyl, it's like 20, 25 quid.
Gosh.
Or something like that. But it's always been important to me, the physical side of things. Because when I was listening, when I grew up listening to music, you would always buy the CD version. Because you'd look at the lyrics while you were listening to it, or you would buy the vinyl version and you'd slide out the liner notes and all that kind of thing. And so it enhanced the experience of listening to the music. It became something that became part of the story of that album.
Did you have any favourites from that time?
Oh, God, that's a difficult one. Only the obvious kind of things like, sort of the covers that Peter Saville was doing and that kind of thing, and Designers Republic and all that kind of stuff. It became another part of the experience of listening to stuff. But, I kind of liked stuff that was like really lo-fi as well. It was kind of, I think just having that physical thing in your hand There's just something about that that's very different to listening to Spotify or, downloading music and that kind of thing. And I think
Napster.
Yes. Oh God, is that still alive, that thing?
I have no idea.
Yeah, but I see it in a lot of students as well. It's really encouraging that a lot of students who come to uni buy records. They've grown up with downloading and streaming and all that kind of stuff, but they actively seek out to buy physical things. So that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
That people care about that stuff. And it's the same with book covers, isn't it? It's like, I understand Kindle's great because you can hold lots of information on it, but I'd rather hold a physical book and smell the pages. And
Same.
Yeah, it's just, it enhances the experience, I think, it's part of the overall experience. So it wasn't deliberate that I started doing more of that stuff. It's just that I sort of did a few kind of projects with people, and then more people started asking me can you do that for me? Or can you do that for this? And so again, it's like when I got into teaching, it's kind of, I just kept getting asked to do things. And as long as people were asking me, I was quite happy to kind of oblige. And then, it just over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, maybe 5 years, I've just been doing a lot of that stuff. And it's took 22 years to figure out what I enjoy doing, but it's kind of, I really enjoy that. I really love working with musicians, and I really love working with songwriters and singers and all that kind of stuff, because they have a creative process. It's a different creative process to mine, but the fact that they have a creative process, and immediately when you start working with someone, there's this mutual understanding that is kind of unheard, that you don't get in other sort of sectors. I used to do a lot of branding and corporate identity and that kind of thing, which was, I used to really love doing that as well. But I think when you work with someone who creates things themselves, there's a different dynamic, and I really love that, and I really love the people that I work with to get involved in the design process, and that happens a lot, and I think that's really sort of useful, and I think it's really important, because I think when you're designing something for someone else's music, it's not about you.
Yeah.
It is not about you in the slightest. It's about that artist, that music. So I'm more interested when I work with someone who's written an album or, and recorded an album. I'm kind of interested in why they did it that way. What was it about to them? What was going on when they wrote that stuff? So
as part of the process, do you kind of immerse yourself in that music as well?
Not loads, because I don't want that to kind of influence the visuals of it too much. I think once I do that, that's my interpretation of that music in a visual sense,
right? Not
theirs. Does that make sense?
So, no, totally.
So it's kind of, I think it's really useful. I always listen to stuff a few times just to get a feel for it, because that might affect the tone of how you use typography or whatever and that kind of stuff. But my main interest is figuring out what was going through their head when they were writing it, and that kind of thing. And I think that's really crucial. And then I think it's kind of my job as a designer, it's their baby at the end of the day. It's really important to them, and it's making sure we give it the right clothes and it says the right things, and it resonates with the person who wrote the music, I think.
Yeah.
That's crucial to me. I don't approach it in the way of, I've listened to that album and I think we should do this with it, and we think we should do that with it, and have you thought about that? I throw things in like that, but I like it when the people who've created the music are actively involved in that, because I think that's crucial.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's, it's theirs, it's their thing.
And you're working with some pretty big names, aren't you?
I don't know. I've worked with a few sort of bigger independent labels, which is, I've done a few jobs for One Little Indie, One Little Independent Records, who have got Bjork on their books and people like that. And
pretty huge.
Yeah, well, they're really great, because they're a label that understands the design process as well, in that they say, this artist has got a new album coming out. Would you be interested in getting involved? And you have a listen, and you say, yeah, that sounds cool, and what have you. And then they literally put you in touch with the artist, and then they back off.
Yeah.
So it's literally, you have a process where it's just you and the artist kind of batting things backwards and forwards for like a few weeks, or however long they give you. And then when it's kind of all done and dusted and designed, you just say to the label, right, we're done now. We can get it off to print whenever you need. And there's no real interference, which is like really great. And working for labels like that is fab because you don't have to, you've not got that pressure of like, oh, well, you know, we think it should be like this. And it's like, well, it's not really about what you think. It's about
Make it bigger.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I've never had any of that interference, so which has been really great. And I do stuff for a band called the KVB, who are on a label called Invader, who are based in Bristol. And they're really great as well. And that's run by Jeff. We talked about this the other night. Jeff from Portishead.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's that's his label. So it's always been the same with the KVB. It's always we've always spoke to each other directly, you know, and batted ideas backwards and forwards, and they're always really involved in the process. And what's good about them is that Kat, who is one of the members of the KVB, she's like a visuals designer, so she has her own visual language anyway. So that's really interesting when she throws some things in and says, "What do you think of this? Could we make that do something? Can that work?" And that's fun.
Yeah. That's
fun stuff. And I've always found designing stuff for people in the music related stuff it's just loads of fun.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm one of those people who always went to gigs when I got to 16 and I was allowed to go to gigs. I do it all, you know, it's great. You can't beat being in a room with a band listening to live music.
What was your first gig?
It was a band called Quicksand, and I didn't know who they were or what they were about. One of my friends at college, at sixth form college, Andy, he had a spare ticket to see Quicksand at the Boardwalk in Manchester.
Nice, I love the Boardwalk.
Yeah, it was brilliant, and so the ticket was like £4 or something like that.
Brill.
And I'd never been to like a rock gig, and so he taught me all the rules of how to mosh and how to protect yourself when the mosh pit. How do
you mosh?
Well, you have to keep your arms up and things like that so that you don't get your arms trapped at your side if it's a big sort of squish.
Right.
Keep your arms up so you can still control your balance to a certain extent. So yeah, I got like a crash course in the mosh pit.
And if anybody climbs on top of you at not a Primal Scream gig, a Happy Mondays gig, and they've got big army boots on and they weigh about, you know, twice as much as you do, best technique is to just punch them in the balls.
Yeah.
I found that worked very well.
I imagine that does work. Yeah, it was always that thing of like, if someone falls over, you've got to get them up as quick as you can. I don't know whether that happens at gigs nowadays. I don't really go in the mosh pits much now.
No.
But it was always that thing, if someone goes down, you get them up quick before everyone treads on them. Or if someone wants to crowd surf and they tap you on the shoulder and give you that look, you sort of give them a peg up.
Yes.
And that's how it works. Those were the ground rules.
Have you ever started a mosh pit?
Probably not started. The gigs I always used to go to, I always used to just have one anyway.
Yeah.
There were never gigs where there wasn't one. It was always chaotic. And
there was one where I went to. It was the Sex Pistols at the Manchester Arena.
Yeah.
MEN Arena. Is it still called the MEN Arena?
I think so.
Yeah, and there were just all these like really lovely, somber 50, 60-year-old blokes stood around, all with no hair, bless them. And they were all just like tapping their feet. And my friend Andy, who I was with, he was like, "This is so boring. What are we going to do?" I was like, "Hold my pint." And went to the front and just started jumping up and down and started one, and then came back and I took my pint back off my friend and he was like, "I love you."
My work here is done.
My work is done.
Yeah, so I went to see this band called Quicksand, who I've never heard of. And they were brilliant. It was at the Boardwalk and there was like 40 people there.
Oh, brilliant.
I think I had ticket number 16 or something like that. And I didn't know they just got off a tour with The Offspring, who were at the time were becoming really big. And everyone thought he went on, when saw them on the Warped Tour, I think it was, or wherever it was in America, they thought that they were better. But there was like 40 people there.
Magic.
It was great because there was no security, so you could jump around, you could get on stage and throw yourself off, all that kind of stuff. And then when they'd finished, the band came and just sat down and were talking to people and speaking to us. And I was like, oh my God, people do that, you know? And so it was really like really great experience. And I loved the music, so I became a really big fan of them. And then I remember like the week after, I picked up Kerrang magazine and they had a double page spread in Kerrang. And then I think a few weeks after that, they played on the David Letterman show. And it was like, hang on a minute, I've just been talking to that guy, you know, the lead singer, guitarist, and now he's on like
That's
MTV.
great.
It was crazy. Yeah. So I just love being in a room with music, you know, bands playing live. whatever kind of music it is, you know, it's especially a smaller venue where there's more of a relationship between the audience and the people on stage. I think I've done a few bigger gigs, but they're never as, I prefer the intimate ones where it's really sweaty and horrible and, you know.
The floor's sticky.
Yeah, exactly. Proper dirty. That was why the boardwalk was so great, because
little did we know that one day it would turn into an office. No, it's an office.
Is it an office now?
And I don't know if they're still there, but there's like a creative agency in there
Oh,
now.
right, okay, cool. Yeah, it was brilliant. It used to go every week, and it was 3 bands for $5.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't know who any of the bands were, but we ended up seeing people like L7 and Skunk and Nancy.
Oh, brilliant.
Bands like that.
Was it on a Thursday? I think it was.
I think it was
wasn't
a Wednesday or a Thursday we used to go, but we'd see amazing bands, but there'd only be like 50 to 100 people there. And that, you know, so for me, that was my introduction to live music, really. And I've loved it ever since. So, you know, working in that arena and doing design work in that arena is just like so much fun.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, it's kind of, it's just
one of your many passions.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And you know, I never planned it. I never planned to be a teacher, you know, but you kind of just fall into these things somehow. It's like teaching was the same. Like I got asked to show work, and so I went in and showed work, and then I got asked, you know, do you want to come and set a project? And yeah, I'll come and do a project. And then before you know it, it's like, do you want to do a term and just come in for a day a week and do this kind of thing? So it's complete accident.
It's brilliant. It's saying yes to things. You just don't know where it's going to lead.
It's one of those things, again, like never giving myself any credit for actually getting into it or doing that kind of thing, because it was all a fluke. You know, it was like, that's classic imposter syndrome. It's like
classic,
sort of,
you know, you have to stop that.
Yes,
you got there, you're there now for a reason, and that's great.
But I find the balance of teaching and designing really works for me. Like I was working full-time design for over 10 years, and you sort of, after a while, you can fall out of love with it because it's everything you do. And you find that a lot of things outside of design you don't do as much. So, you know, I'd not read a book for like 6 or 7 years, and you know, I'd not gone for a walk or walked up a hill for years, or done something that wasn't design. And I think that's when you burn out. You know, you just fall out. I fell out of love with it. You know, and it took me a good 12 months to fall back in love with it again.
Yeah,
but knowing more about my mental health and how to keep that in a good place, I think I had to go through all that to get to the point where I went, you know, if I do design full time again, that'll drive me insane. And if I did teaching full time, that'd drive me insane as well. I see some of the full time members, and it's all encompassing. It can be really, really difficult. So completely by accident, I've got both of those things, and it's a lovely balance for me.
That's great.
And it's good because the students feed into what I do, I feed into what the students do, and that, like you said earlier, keeps you on your toes, I think, because you can get complacent, you know.
You can.
If you think you're amazing all the time and that, you know, everyone should be working with you, then you sort of drop the ball. I don't think it's healthy.
No, I don't think it is. No, I started this conversation saying, you know, you're a graphic designer that no one's heard of. And I was kind of like leading us into a discussion of everything leading up to this point. The truth is you are very well known. And known as the nicest graphic designer in the Northwest by many, many people.
Okay. That's nice.
Whenever you sort of mention your name to others, their faces always light up.
Oh, well, that's good.
Oh, yes, I know, great. Oh, great guy. And everybody I've spoken to about you has always got something really nice to say.
All right, good.
Which is, you know, wonderful, because you are a champion of the creative industries up this way.
Yeah.
And very supportive of others, and very humble and very kind, and just a lovely presence. And I know I'm sort of kissing your ass a lot here, but I'm not. I'm being very, very genuinely saying that all this is true. But well,
the thing is, there's no excuse to be a twat, is there? Really? You know, it's kind of.
That wasn't what I was getting at.
No, but why? You know, there's no reason for being that way. It's, you know, you know, I've had sort of, you know, over the last 22 years, I've changed and developed as a person, and things that were important to me 20 years ago that are not important to me now. And, you know, I think, like I say, there's room for everyone. I'll speak to anyone, anything, and sort of try and be supportive, because
there's no ladder.
Yeah, but I've been through all that, and I know what it's like when you hit rock bottom, and I know what it's like when things don't work the way you want them to, and things are not going great, and you've just got to keep ploughing ahead, and eventually you find your spot where you belong, and everything's great.
Everybody's on their own journey, on their own
exactly.
path.
Yeah,
You don't have to worry about what everybody else is doing. You can just crack on and enjoy your own life.
You have these kind of phrases in your head of like, oh, I should be doing this, and I should have an award by now. I should have had an exhibition by now. And like my therapist always used to say things like, well, who says you should?
Yeah, exactly.
Who is that person that says you should have done?
Where's this narrative coming from?
And it's in your own head. It's you saying that and setting unrealistic sort of boundaries for yourself. And you've got to kind of let all that go.
You do.
It's not important, but it is difficult to let go when you've been in it for so long. It's difficult to do, but it is quite freeing when you just think, oh, I don't give a shit anymore.
I think that comes with age.
Yeah, definitely. I think
one of those
so.
things.
Yeah.
You just get to a point where you're like, oh, now I get it why my mum said at some point she doesn't care anymore. She doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. I think it is growing up.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think you do it not just in your working life, but I think you do it in your personal life as well. As you kind of...
You got to edit. You
keep the things around that bring positivity to your life.
Yes.
And if there's anything or anyone who isn't bringing positivity to your life, don't worry about moving on.
Yeah.
Don't worry about,
You're not being cruel.
No,
you're just protecting yourself.
Yeah, you will meet people over the years who just bring negativity to everything. And people gravitate towards people who are positive and have a more positive attitude. And, you'll find the right people eventually, and you'll get good at knowing who the right people to be friends with and hang around with that are good for you.
Yeah.
And everyone's different.
If anybody's listening to this in Manchester and they see me and Graham and a few others at an event, we're the good eggs. Come and talk to us.
Come talk to us, yes. We won't shoo you away.
We won't. Gosh, no.
Or sort of, make any judgments on you immediately like everyone does. But yeah, no.
Wow. Yeah.
I think you've got to keep positive stuff in your life that's good for you.
Yeah.
I think that we struggle with that. I think that we almost feel like we're being selfish when we say those things of like looking out for yourself and making sure but you're not. You've got to kind of look out for yourself.
Yeah.
Well,
this is what I was going to ask you, given that you're so well known in the Northwest and you talk to so many people in the design industry, and I think you're a good person to ask these sort of questions to, because you've got a good feel of how, maybe not necessarily, but I think you and I have a similar thing in that we talk to a lot of people across the board and we get a good sense of how the industry's feeling. I mean, from everything that's been happening this year, I know we're all exhausted by even just saying back to normal.
Oh, yeah, no. What is that?
Yeah, what does that even mean? It's kind of like, what's the atmosphere with the people that you're talking to? How does everyone feel? Is it different? Is there a sort of recurring theme?
It's definitely different. I think the whole process of going through COVID has affected everyone. And I spoke to quite a few designers during the lockdown and that kind of thing. And it was really useful to do because, again, as a designer, you do that thing of you look on Instagram and everyone's really happy.
Yeah.
Everyone's got shitloads of work on and you're thinking, oh God, no, I've only got like 2 projects on.
It's not the reality.
No, it's not real at all. And then when you have a Zoom conversation with someone and they say like, oh, are you busy? And you're like, no. And they say, are you? No. And it's like, it was the same for everyone. And we're still recovering now. It's like the stuff I do in music related stuff, there's a massive backlog of people releasing music. And so to get a vinyl record pressed, it's like 9 to 12 months.
Gosh.
So you
everything's just catching up.
Yeah, it's catching up. You could design something and then you won't actually see the physical thing till 9 months down the line. And you can't show it anyone until it's released. So it's like you've got to sit on it for like 9 months. And so the stuff like that, especially specifically in the kind of stuff that I do. But I think a lot of people have really struggled, and I think it has changed a lot of people. I think it's had some positive things in that, things like Zoom or Teams or whatever and that kind of stuff, those are quite useful things. Like,
yeah, definitely.
If I'm working with an artist who lives in LA or somewhere, I can have a Zoom conversation with them and it's like being in the same room with them.
Yeah.
And I never would have considered using something like that before. And and probably wouldn't have got any work for someone out there because of that reason. So in a way, I think a lot more people have adapted to like a hybrid kind of way of working, whereby sometimes you're there physically and other times you're remote. And I think definitely with teaching as well, when we did the second year of COVID, we literally were doing lessons on Zoom and Teams. So you were doing like a tutor group round the table session, but you were all on a camera screen.
Yeah.
And it's not the same. It's just not the same as being in the room round a table with people physically. But there are certain things you can do in teaching. Like if you're doing a bigger lecture, you don't all have to go and find a lecture theatre and fill it up. You can do it remote online and more people can watch it. So I think
positives, ups and downs.
The designers that I've spoke to coming back out have all been through the same thing. And it sounds like it's been hell for everyone. And a lot of people, especially people who are self-employed, have struggled really to kind of keep the work coming in.
Yeah. I get that. And I get the sense that people are just absolutely knackered.
Yeah.
Like this year, they just haven't got the energy to sort of work, let alone plan a holiday.
Yeah,
like
exactly,
everybody is all just sort of caught up with everyone this year, and everyone is knackered, because I know so many people who carried on working throughout the whole entire thing.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing, if you're your own boss, or you've got to keep going. And I think it's caught up with a lot of people. And I think the whole scenario of what actually happened from a sort of human being point of view, in that, it was a bit of a shitstorm in terms of the last few years. People try and write it off and forget about it, but it has affected everyone, and a lot of people are hitting the wall. It's kind of, I literally went on holiday last week for a week, and it was the best thing I've done like all year, just because me and Gemma didn't do anything. We just literally booked a cottage for a week near Kendal, and then we just ate at nice places and had pints of Guinness. And then even on days we just sat watching Netflix in the cottage.
Oh, nice.
But it was
heaven.
It was just so nice to kind of have a week of not doing anything and not thinking about, I need to update Instagram, or I need to put that project on my website, or I need to do this, and I need to go to this event, I need to speak. It was just really nice doing absolutely nothing, or just doing things that were pleasurable, like eating and drinking and chilling out. And so you've got to, I've learned over the years, you've got to have a balance. You can't just do, I was always one of those people that was all or nothing. It was kind of, I either do design and there's nothing else, or I don't do it at all.
Yeah.
I was never one of those people that years ago of like, well, I can do both, I've learned mainly through having mental health struggles and get through and all that is kind of, it's totally okay to do nothing.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't feel guilty about doing nothing. And it is really strange the first time you do it and you think, oh, hang on, what am I doing? It's really frightening.
It is. And then you think, oh, I should be doing something.
Yeah,
it's that
exactly.
voice
and it's
again.
that voice again.
I should.
No, but who says
be doing
that?
something.
Who says you should?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just getting comfortable with that. And it's took me years to get comfortable with that. But you've got to look after yourself mentally. And, you might think that doing graphic design, doing something fun, you're not going to burn out because you enjoy it. You can still burn out.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Even if you love it, and it's kind of, you've got to have balance, and it's okay to, like we've said before, to have flaws and to do things wrong and not beat yourself up about it, and to actually have time where you do something that isn't design.
Yeah.
And I suppose I get part of that from teaching, but I am teaching design, but I also make sure that I have other things in my life that I really enjoy. So I started reading books again about sort of 10 years ago, and I've got like a massive book collection now of stuff that I reread and etc. So there's lots of things you've got to stay healthy mentally. And
you like horror movies as well,
yes,
don't you?
John Carpenter horror movies. Always been a massive fan. So yeah, all that kind of stuff. I kind of immerse myself in. I think as a designer, it's really good to be immersed in popular culture, because I think what's going on in the world of that side of things, but. Yeah, I've learned to go easier on myself and not beat myself up when I'm doing something that isn't design, and not feel guilty about it. So, massive film buff, love reading books, I've started doing more outdoorsy stuff because of where we live now. So going for walks and things like something I never would have done, and all that kind of stuff. And I think you've got to have balance. It keeps you sane, I think. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Graham, for coming and chatting about all these really important things and learning a bit more about
Lego as well.
Oh, gosh, Lego.
Lego did save my life. That was one of the things that saved my life was Lego.
Really?
Getting back into Lego when I was really ill because it's something I'd not done for years. And then I started going on eBay like you do and saying, oh, God, yeah, look, it's a really nice Lego set. And then the therapeutic element of building it was really relaxing. So I really got like hooked on it. And now that's like one of the major things in my life. Obviously, don't tell Gemma that, but things like that, having those things really help shape me as a person now, and keeping those things going, not letting them fall by the wayside when a good project comes in. I think you've got to make an effort to keep that stuff kind of going.
You really do. You really do. And you're having a bit of a nice day off today as well, aren't you?
Yes, yeah. I'm going to head over to Sheffield to see Ian Anderson, the design wife. Going to take him out for a few beers and probably have a curry. It's our annual summer get together that never usually happens because either he's too busy or things like COVID happen. But so yeah, I'm going to bob over there and just meet up with Ian because Ian's really good for mental health. He's a straight shooter, tells it how it is. But
he's good fun.
He's lovely. Yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Oh, well, have a lovely time and say hello from me. And
I will do.
Thank you so much for coming in and having this chat. Really covered so many important themes. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, it's been brilliant. Thank you. To discover more about Graham Jones of Loose Collective, you can find everything you need via the show notes at creativeboom.com/podcast. That's where you can also hit subscribe and see our entire archive of episodes so far. And if you're enjoying the show, don't forget to leave us a review, as it not only gives us a boost, but helps to support the creatives we feature. Next time, we'll be chatting with Casey Jones, a graphic designer based in Manchester, who also runs a magazine called Fresh to spotlight underrepresented creatives. She's also the founder of a vegan food truck. See you then.